Okay, so the chemoreceptors I was just talking about before I got cut off, because I didn't get cut off because I paid attention to time, are going to respond to carbon dioxide levels, pH, and oxygen levels. And their function is to maintain blood pH. And do you remember what blood pH is? Where the blood pH range is? I'm going to let you think about that, and if you can't figure it out, look back in chapter 18, it'll tell you. Okay? pH is negatively correlated with carbon dioxide, so the more carbon dioxide we have, the lower our pH is. So they go hand in hand. And we always want to maintain pH at that set point. So we're going to use a negative feedback to bring the pH back to where it's supposed to be, or a negative feedback to bring the amount of carbon dioxide in our system back to where it should be, because the amount of carbon dioxide is going to influence our pH. Oxygen also does have an influence on pH, but not near as much. Actually, oxygen, no, I won't say it that way. I'll say actually we breathe associated with the amount of carbon dioxide in our system. Carbon dioxide is the driving force of breathing for us. Oxygen becomes driving force when we have built up a tolerance to carbon dioxide in our system. That's when oxygen becomes a very major driving force for breathing. We also have the hypothalamus and the limbic system that can influence our heart rate and blood pressure. So the hypothalamus is going to send signals for that fight or flight response. And this occurs when our body temperature rises, so we actually move into that sympathetic system when our body temperature rises. And then the limbic system is going to respond to emotional stimuli. So when you're by someone that you find attractive and your heart starts to beat faster because you're excited. So this actually moves us into that sympathetic system again. That's a sympathetic response to an individual. Or when you get emotional, when you smell something and it brings back memories of like your childhood, and you get that emotional feeling, and your blood pressure might rise or it might go, you typically will rise, and you get kind of excited about, oh my God, you know, that's what my mom made, blah, 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 blah. That, again, is moving us into a sympathetic stage. The long-term control occurs using hormones. Hormones are a long-term, slow-acting messenger system. And so these first two hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine, they work in that sympathetic system of the nervous system more than in the than in the endocrine system. They're hormones, but they are fast-acting hormones. And they're stimulated by the nervous system to be released. But then we have hormones, angiotensin 2. We have, which is, we'll talk about the production of it, antidiuretic hormone, aldosterone, and atrial natriuretic peptide. So the renin-angiotensin system is a major contributor to increasing blood pressure. Renin is produced by the kidneys in response to low blood pressure. So as blood moves through the kidneys recognize an increase or a decrease in pressure, blood moving in, and that stimulates kidney cells to produce renin. Renin is going to move into the blood, and it interacts with a protein, an inactive hormone, basically. It's an inactive protein hormone that is produced by the liver. So angiotensinogen is produced by the liver, and it floats in our blood just waiting to become activated. When renin and angiotensinogen interact, angiotensin 1 is produced. Angiotensin 1 then sits in the blood and moves through the pulmonary system, and in the lungs, cells release angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE, and ACE converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. And then angiotensin 2 is actually the hormone that increases blood pressure. So angiotensin 2 is able to increase blood pressure by stimulating vasoconstriction of our blood vessels. It also stimulates the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus tells our body that we are thirsty, so that we will drink more to increase our blood volume. It tells our kidneys to, it works with our kidneys to tell our kidneys to slow down in releasing fluids. It stimulates the production of both antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone. Aldosterone is produced by the, I almost said the wrong word, by the adrenal glands, and it is your salt-loving hormone. So when aldosterone is produced, it increases the amount of salt that is retaken into the blood. And when salt moves into the blood, sodium moves into the blood, water follows sodium, increases the blood volume. That increases blood pressure. Aldosterone, produced by the hypothalamus, is going to be secreted from the posterior pituitary because that's where it's stored. And it helps in producing small aquaporins in the kidney tubules. And so more water is going to be reabsorbed through those aquaporins. And that's going to, again, increase the amount of water in our system, increasing blood pressure. But antidiuretic hormone also causes constriction of sweat glands, so we don't lose as much water through sweating. This is your figure that shows the renin and angiotensin activity. So the kidneys produce angiotensinogen, which is an inactive protein hormone. The kidneys produce renin. And so we're looking at low blood pressure. So we're going to raise the blood pressure back up to where it's supposed to be. This is negative feedback. Kidneys release the renin. Renin and angiotensinogen interact, producing angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 moves in the blood to the pulmonary system, and in the lungs, ACE is going to convert angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 is then going to increase the blood pressure by these different activities. So vasoconstriction, influencing our thirst, decreasing the amount of urine we produce, as well as activating aldosterone and antidiuretic hormone release. So aldosterone I mentioned before, but I'll say it again, is your salt lover. So it's sodium ions are going to be reabsorbed, and when we reabsorb sodium ions, we also reabsorb more water because water follows solute. Antidiuretic hormone is released from the posterior pituitary, and its function is going to be producing aquaporins in the renal tubules. And this increases the amount of water we take back in. So again, increasing blood pressure. So all of these hormones work together in increasing blood pressure. Here's more information. Same thing I've talked about already. And I didn't say this, but the hypothalamus also, I mentioned it before, but the hypothalamus, when it stimulates antidiuretic hormone release, because of the angiotensin 2, it's also going to stimulate the increase in thirst. So we increase the amount of fluid we take back in. So AMP is the opposite then. All these hormones increase blood pressure. AMP actually decreases blood pressure. AMP is released from the atrium of the heart. So we have right and left atrium. In the right atrium, we have the cells that produce atrial natriuretic peptide in response to increased stretch. So as blood moves back from the system into the right atrium, if there's a great stretch on the heart wall, that stimulates ANP to be produced. ANP then moves into the blood and it inactivates angiotensin II, it inactivates aldosterone, it inactivates antidiuretic hormone. It causes blood vessels to relax, so they enlarge. It reduces the amount of aquaporins and stops us from taking in too much sodium. This lowers blood pressure back down to where it needs to be. So this is all a mechanism to control blood pressure and keep us in homeostatic balance, and it's all controlled through negative feedback mechanisms. This video you can watch. All you have to do is click on the link. I'm not going to watch it with you, and the reason is because I'll click on it so you can see how long it is. It's a very long link. Hold on. Not a long link. That's not what I want to say. Always will. It's a very long video, so 11 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's an excellent video, and it's an interactive video, so it's good for you to watch, and then you can interact with the video, and it gives you a lot of information on how blood pressure is controlled. So I highly suggest you watch it. I will probably grab at least 2 questions from this video for the exam so that those who did watch the video, will have that information, okay? Sorry. Some disorders associated with blood pressure then. We have hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and then hypotension, which is low blood pressure. Typically, hypertension is more commonly seen than hypotension. Hypertension is anything above 140 systolic or over 90 diastolic. This can be associated with, well, definitely heart disease, with blood blockages in the heart, not in the heart, I'm sorry, in the blood vessels leading to the heart. Atherosclerosis, where you have the thickening of the arterial walls because you have like plaque buildup on those arterial walls. That can cause your blood pressure to get too high, and then too high of blood pressure can actually do damage to the walls of the vessels. Hypotension is low blood pressure, typically below 90 systolic or below 60 diastolic. And it's usually not as problematic. We see more high blood pressure than low blood pressure, but in certain disorders, hypotension is very common, and in certain individuals, especially people who have anemia, are going to be more prone to low blood pressure because they don't have as much oxygen carrying capacity. Typically, we're looking at less blood cells, so their blood can flow easier, and so you don't need as much pressure to push the blood through the body. With low blood pressure, you're looking at not enough perfusion to the tissues. You're going to be more prone to fainting or very, very tired because you're not getting oxygen to your tissues. Orthostatic high blood pressure, or orthostatic low blood pressure is the drop of blood pressure when you stand up too fast. So, you're sitting there, and then you go to stand up, and you're like, whoa, I've got a crazy head right now. Then you can stand up a few minutes later after your head rush is gone. That's orthostatic blood pressure. The last thing I want to talk about is fetal and newborn blood circulation, but I'll do that in our very last video. Bye.